Despite what the title and thumbnail might suggest, I do not dislike Season 2. Each match feels unique with a large variety of different, albeit very broken playstyles, and despite Season 2 having quite a bit of broken content, I still found myself enjoying it. However, unfortunately, the me likes it position doesn't really hold up, and I'm not going to pretend that every match is rainbows and sunshines. I want to make it clear that I looked at this season from many different directions in an effort to remain open-minded, and come from as much of a good faith position as possible. But it seems like every time I find something healthy or entertaining about the season, there's enough rancid shit to counterbalance my praise. Ultimately, it makes what could be an amazing season come off as bipolar in nature. Look, I know many of you probably like this season, so I want to get the positive stuff out of the way first. Chapter 6 Season 2 is now the third season to use the heisted style theme, and despite people's reservations with using the concept for a third time, Season 2 manages to explore new ideas. This season relies on black markets for obtaining the mythics and exotics instead of vaults, which yes, does have its issues, but does offer something unique when compared to the prior two. By making it so that vaults are still a facet of the season, but only give you the currency necessary to acquire the mythics and exotics, it allows black markets to act as a mid-game objective to get loot and run into other players. Similarly, the train got an overhaul this season and now functions as a heist where you can blow it open with thermite. This not only takes way less time than it used to when capturing the train.
I mean, I really had to know. How long would it take?
Decades.
Centuries.
But also grants loot that actually gives you incentive to interact with it. The AR loot pool, while not balanced, does have a significantly larger amount of variety in playstyles. I honestly think you can make the argument for running any one of these weapons, except for maybe the collateral. And again, I am aware how good the collateral works in competitive, but primarily in pubs and even ranked lobbies, there's not really much of a point of running an AR that isn't very ranged. The rocket drill is what I can only describe as perfectly balanced item rotation. It's essentially a reworked rocket ram that is easier to control. Boosting with it acts as solid repositioning, and it's too slow to effectively get out of jail with. And my favorite part, you can farm with it. The new medallion functions similarly to the one in Chapter 5 Season 3, but doesn't allow you to blast through builds. And the map changes are overall strong with the addition of Gold Rush rivers that give you a speed boost to move around the map faster. And apart from a few smaller changes, that's where my praise ends. Because like most unappealing seasons, the loot pool creates an obnoxious play pattern. The launch of Season 2 left a negative impression on me because I was greeted by these two atrocities from beyond the grave. The Mammoth Pistol is an obnoxiously easy weapon to use. Its high damage with low falloff, lack of bullet drop, and zoomed in FOV when compared to other pistols, while ADS'd, makes this weapon extremely broken. It's to the point where there's no real argument that can be made for running the new sniper this season when there's a hit scan alternative that still does a significant amount of damage.
Please.
And trust me, Epic knows this shit is broken because they removed it from tournaments. Not ranked though. Not ranked though. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. The sticky grenade launcher serves the main purpose of ruining your day if you're playing builds. Because this weapon doesn't explode on impact, you can attach a grenade to someone's wall, quickly swap to your shotgun to line up a shot, and because the subsequent time between building placements isn't fast enough, you can sneak in some easy damage. This by no means is difficult to do, especially since you can see through freshly placed or damaged builds. It's so mind-numbingly easy that Cypher PK was able to kill Bucky, who at the time was considered a pro player.
What? Is that Bucky? Bucky. Come on, man. Wow, I kind of cheesed you really hard, I'm not gonna lie.
Correct! The start of the season got rid of the lobotomy shotgun. A weapon that was undoubtedly the worst of the three shotguns during Season 1. What we were left with was a pretty standard pump tack style shotgun meta, which honestly was fine by me. However, every season since Chapter 3 Season 1 has added at least one new shotgun, and Season 2 wasn't going to be the first to break that trend. The two new shotguns this season add nothing to the loot pool. The Outlaw shotgun is a very clunky weapon to use. This weapon has two shots and acts as a double barrel style shotgun. The issue is not only does this weapon do less damage than the original double barrel, but it also has a significantly slower fire rate, which makes it feel like you're using a tactical shotgun with only two shots. The pump and dump, however, is arguably worse. The idea of a dual-wield weapon where one gun functions differently from the other is a cool concept that, in the case of the pump and dump, was executed very poorly. I can imagine this weapon being somewhat viable if you get up in someone's face in zero builds, but this gun struggles in builds for the same reason that double pumping does. It requires you and your opponent to overexpose yourselves if you want the strategy, or in this case, the weapon, to be viable. At least with the double pump, you can still get one good shot off during a box fight, because the pump by itself is a strong weapon. With the pump and dump, you are pretty much required to be using both the shotgun and SMG feature at the same time if you want to do effective damage, which isn't realistic. It's obvious that Epic wanted to create a new shotgun that could be viewed as innovative, or stand out when compared to the 20 others that are slight alterations of the pump.
Are there any other Squidwards I should know about? Meow. I'm out of here.
The issue is this is a very difficult thing to do without creating something very clunky. Most of the time when they don't use their cookie cutter shotgun model to replenish players' dopamine after a grueling 2 weeks of no content, it results in less than ideal weapons that are incredibly gimmicky. I'm glad they made an effort to try something new. However, at some point I think they just had to have realized that this weapon wasn't going to work, but they invested too much time into it to not put it into the game. The shotgun loot pool, as a result of these gimmicky and clunky weapons, has really only one strong choice: the Sentinel. This leads to matches where you're stuck with a weapon that not only is not in the meta, but also garbage by the standards of a shotgun. Strangely enough, despite the already existing clutter, Epic unvaulted the Infiltrator, yet again another shotgun that isn't better than the Sentinel pump. Given the accidental leak in the news tab, the initial goal behind adding back the Infiltrator was for it to replace the Sentinel pump with a worse shotgun instead of nerfing the Sentinel directly. I can honestly respect the original idea they had of not wanting to nerf the Sentinel, that way it could remain a strong weapon if they ever wanted it to return and say reload, while giving a substantial buff to the wet napkin shooter. That way it could act as a worse version of the Sentinel.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's kind of what I said too.
The problem is, despite appealing to what the community wanted after the backlash by not removing the Sentinel, they still doubled down on unvaulting this weapon, further muddying up an already cluttered loot pool, because I guess shitty content is better than no content. This means we now have 5 shotguns in this loot pool, of which only 1 is in the meta. The one positive to come out of this is that the Infiltrator is now a solid weapon. It's not better than the Sentinel because that wasn't the initial intention, but at the very least it's substantially more useful than it used to be. And of course, let's not forget about the mythic and exotic weapons. Similar to the entire season, I have very mixed feelings about how these were implemented. As far as the selection goes, it seems to remain on theme with the overabundance of broken content, but that's honestly not where my main criticism lies. For the most part, exotics in this season aren't necessarily better than the weapon they are derived from, but rather they offer a gimmick that sets them apart. This season does a solid job of making these weapons have interesting features that don't overshadow the main loot pool, but rather create different playstyles with existing weapons. I think they should have just stuck with this, because adding weapons like the mythic drum gun and minigun back into the game dictates which item you're going to choose from the black markets.
If that DVD even touches Roadhouse, I will kill you.
Because while the exotics are gimmicky versions of existing weapons, mythics are amplified versions of existing weapons. Oh, and if you need to be told why the Brutus minigun is broken, your lobotomist has dug a little too deep. What I really don't understand is Epic's fascination with making vaults, bunkers, and in this case black markets, the most campable locations on the map. The issue is, these structures by design exist almost completely underground, and most of the time this means there's only one way to enter and leave. Little rancid rodent players who aren't talented enough to get the dilbits themselves understand this flaw and exploit it in a way that can only be described as cancer. Honestly, if POIs were built around these locations, acquiring the mythics and exotics would be less of a mid-game objective, and the issue wouldn't really be a problem because players wouldn't have time to set up shop outside of the black markets while you do all the work. And yes, I'm aware of how hypocritical it sounds to commend Epic for using black markets in a mid-game objective format, only to shit on them for that very reason. What I'm saying is, if they were planning on making this camper's wet dream of a design, they should have just made it more early game focused to alleviate potential camping. I praise the black market system because making it mid-game based is more interesting and is only made worse by the location's design and not the concept itself. To make matters worse, dilbits can be purchased at black markets, so by the time you take down the vault door, after enduring multiple guards, the third parties, and of course the over-the-top music blasting in your ears, there's a good chance that the weapons at the black market are already gone. It heavily diminishes the value of landing the vault locations when you can just buy a dilbit.
I worked my ass off to get where I am, and you take these shortcuts and you think suddenly you're my peer? I committed my life to this. You don't slide into it like a cheap pair of slippers and then reap all the rewards.
Oh, and apparently, and I don't know because I don't really play, you can actually just acquire these without buying them by opening up one of the chests available in the black market areas. So it's unfortunate because like most of this season, Epic presented a very engaging idea, but couldn't help but make some dumbass change to devalue a large part of this season's content. Matches in Chapter 6 Season 2 vary wildly in terms of enjoyability. One game I'm enjoying the black market system, which feels rewarding after opening the vaults, and the next I'm getting spammed by Brutus's minigun while being shot through walls by someone using a sticky grenade launcher, all because some rodent decided to buy a dilbit early. This is why I called Fortnite Lawless bipolar, because despite having so many aspects that usually drive a season into the shitter, with failed concepts, a cluttered loot pool, and god-awful completely brain-dead balancing, there's a certain charm that Season 2 has that makes me want to fight through the storm of piss to experience those unique aspects. For those reasons, I feel like this season is no better than a 6 out of 10. I was honestly considering giving it something lower, but I can respect that there was clear effort made in many areas, even if that content was heavily overshadowed by garbage. If you made it this far, consider subscribing or using creator code MUDGY if you want to support me. Anyways, thank you for watching and have a great day.